What if I told you that in just a few minutes you could improve your English skills, and at the same time discover a story so powerful it could change the way you see yourself? Today we begin a journey into the life of Albert Einstein, a man whose ideas reshaped the world, and whose courage proved that persistence and curiosity can overcome any obstacle. Think about this for a moment. Einstein wasn't born a genius. In fact, many people thought he was slow as a child. He didn't even speak until he was almost 3 years old. But what made him extraordinary wasn't instant brilliance. It was the fire inside him, the unshakable desire to ask questions, to stay curious when others gave up, and to persist even when the world said, "You'll never succeed." That is the lesson we'll learn today, and here's where it gets exciting for you. As we explore Einstein's story together, I'll be introducing new English words and phrases. You won't just hear a biography. You'll practice listening, expand your vocabulary, and pick up expressions that make your English sound richer and more natural. Every moment of Einstein's life we uncover will carry not just knowledge, but language you can use in your own journey. So as you listen, keep a notebook nearby. Write down new words, repeat them aloud, and more importantly, reflect on how they connect to your own life. Because Einstein's story is not only about physics and discoveries, it's about resilience, self-belief, and daring to challenge the impossible. By the end of this video, you'll walk away with more than just improved English. You'll carry a spark of inspiration, a reminder that no matter where you are now, persistence and curiosity can open doors you never imagined. And if this journey excites you, don't forget, hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and share it with someone who needs a little motivation today. Because just like Einstein's story, your story has the power to inspire too. Imagine this. The year is 1879, in a quiet little town called Ulm, Germany. No headlines announced the birth. No one imagined that this baby would one day transform the world. His name was Albert Einstein. At first glance, he seemed like any other child, except for one detail that made everyone around him whisper and even laugh a little. His head was unusually large. His family joked, half worried, half amused, about whether he would grow up to be a normal child. What they couldn't see was that inside that head was a mind that would one day unlock the secrets of the universe. Albert's parents were ordinary people. His father, Hermann Einstein, was a businessman who worked with electrical parts. His mother, Pauline Koch, stayed at home, but filled their household with love, learning, and music. They were not wealthy, not famous, not powerful, but they created a home full of curiosity and encouragement. And that environment quietly shaped Albert's early years. Here's something important for you to notice. Greatness often begins in ordinary places. Albert didn't come from privilege or a special background. He wasn't treated as extraordinary at birth, and yet within him burned a quiet spark, one that would later grow into a fire of discovery. That's why when you feel ordinary, when you feel unnoticed, remember, being extraordinary is not about where you start. It's about where your curiosity and persistence take you. So, what can we take from this part of Einstein's story for ourselves and for our English learning journey? Let's practice with a new phrase: lasting impression. Albert's large head and unusual start made a lasting impression on his family, even if they didn't yet know what it meant. Repeat that phrase with me, lasting impression. Now think of something from your own childhood that left a lasting impression on you. Maybe a teacher's words, a gift you received, or even a struggle you faced. That reflection connects you not only to Einstein's story, but also to your own. Albert Einstein's birth wasn't a miracle in the eyes of the world, but it was the beginning of a miracle journey. From the quiet town of Ulm to the stage of human history, his life reminds us that sometimes the most ordinary beginnings can lead to the most extraordinary destinies. And if this sparks your curiosity, make sure you subscribe and stay with me, because the next part of Einstein's story, his quiet childhood and the first signs of his genius, will inspire you even more. Don't miss it. Picture a little boy sitting silently in the corner while other children laugh, play, and chatter endlessly. His lips barely move, his voice is rarely heard, and his parents worry, why hasn't he spoken yet? This boy was Albert Einstein. He didn't speak a single word until he was almost 3 years old. Imagine the concern in his household. Whispers that something might be wrong, questions from relatives, the constant doubt hanging in the air. They even gave him a nickname, the Quiet One. And yet silence is often misunderstood. Albert wasn't slow. He wasn't incapable. He was thinking. While others filled the air with words, he filled his mind with questions. He watched. He listened. He studied the world around him as if every detail held a secret. Every bird in the sky, every shadow on the wall, every ripple in water seemed to spark another thought. His silence wasn't emptiness, it was the beginning of genius. And here's where the lesson lies for us. Sometimes being different is the greatest gift. People might not understand your silence, your curiosity, or even your struggles, but those very things can shape your strength. Einstein's delayed speech didn't stop him. It gave him time to observe, to see what others missed, to think more deeply than anyone imagined. Let's take a moment for your English learning. Here's a useful phrase to stand out. Albert stood out not because he was loud or popular, but because he was different. Repeat it with me, stand out. Can you think of a moment in your own life when you stood out from the crowd? Maybe for being quiet, unique, or simply yourself? That experience, just like Albert's, can leave a powerful mark. Einstein's quiet childhood reminds us that greatness isn't always loud. Sometimes it begins in stillness, in silent observation. In those long hours when nobody notices what's happening in your mind. So the next time you feel overlooked, remember this. The world may not hear you yet, but your thoughts, your curiosity, and your persistence could be preparing you for something extraordinary. Stay with me because in the next part, a single small gift from his father, a compass, will transform that silent curiosity into a lifelong quest for answers. And trust me, you don't want to miss that turning point. Make sure you like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to know that being different can be the first step toward greatness. Imagine being 5 years old and receiving a small gift from your father. Not a toy car, not a shiny ball, but something simple, a tiny compass. For most children, it might have been just another object to toss aside. But for young Albert Einstein, that little compass was nothing less than magical. He turned it in his hand again and again, puzzled by the needle that always pointed north no matter which way he spun it. How could it know? What invisible hand was guiding it? While others would shrug and move on, Albert could not. He stared at it for hours, completely captivated. That single compass opened a door in his young mind, a door to unseen forces, hidden rules, and mysteries that begged to be solved. This moment left what Albert himself later called a deep and lasting impression. It was the first spark of the relentless curiosity that would define his life. He realized that the world was not just what we could see. It was also shaped by invisible powers waiting to be understood. From that day forward, Albert wanted to discover them all. Now let's pause for a quick learning moment. Here's a word you can practice. Fascination. It means a powerful attraction or interest. Albert felt a fascination with the compass, a pull so strong that it shaped the rest of his thinking. Try it in a sentence. I have a fascination with the stars because they make me wonder about the universe. Great, now you've got it. But beyond the vocabulary, there's a bigger lesson here. Think back to your own life. Have you ever held something simple yet it completely changed the way you saw the world? Maybe it was a book, a photo, or a conversation that lit a fire inside you. For Albert, it was a compass. For you, it could be anything that awakens your sense of wonder. That sense of wonder, curiosity, is what pushes humanity forward. It is what turned a quiet, misunderstood child into the most famous scientist of all time. And it all began with a small, simple gift. So the next time you stumble upon something ordinary, don't dismiss it too quickly. Look closer. Ask questions. Because sometimes the smallest things can guide you, just like that compass guided Albert, toward a future you never imagined. Stay tuned, because in the next part of Einstein's story, we'll explore his struggles in school, how teachers underestimated him, and how his refusal to stop asking questions set him apart from everyone else. Make sure you subscribe, hit like, and share this video, because just like that compass, one click today might spark a curiosity that changes your life. Imagine sitting in a classroom where every student is expected to stay silent, memorize every word the teacher says, and never, ever ask questions. That was the kind of school young Albert Einstein faced. Strict rules, rigid lessons, and teachers who believed obedience was more important than imagination. For most children, this was normal. But for Albert, it felt like a prison. He didn't want to memorize endless facts. He wanted to understand why. Why does light shine? Why does gravity pull? Why does the world work the way it does? But each time he raised his voice to ask, his teachers grew impatient. They didn't see curiosity, they saw defiance. One teacher grew so frustrated that he told Albert, "You're a disgrace. You will never be successful in life." Imagine hearing those words as a young boy. Most children would have given up, believing the adults were right. But not Albert. Yes, he struggled with languages and memorization. Yes, he failed to fit into the mold of what his school expected. But hidden beneath those struggles was a mind that simply refused to accept easy answers. He wasn't failing school. School was failing him. His passion was mathematics, which he called the language of the universe. To him, numbers weren't just problems to solve, they were puzzles, treasures waiting to be uncovered. Now let's practice some English. Here's a powerful phrase: to go against the grain. It means to act differently from what is expected. Albert went against the grain in school. Instead of memorizing, he questioned, explored, and challenged authority. Repeat it with me: go against the grain. Can you think of a time in your own life when you went against the grain, even if others didn't understand? That's where true growth begins. Einstein's struggles in school remind us of something essential. Failure is not the end, and criticism does not define you. Sometimes being called a failure simply means you're brave enough to think differently. And as Einstein's story shows, those who think differently often change the world. So the next time someone underestimates you, remember Albert. Don't let strict rules or harsh words stop you from asking questions. Stay curious, stay bold, because it's not about fitting into the system. It's about daring to imagine beyond it. And in the next part of his story, you'll see how the love of numbers, music, and a little encouragement from family helped young Albert turn those struggles into strengths. If this inspires you, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and share this story with someone who needs to hear that being different is not a weakness. It's the beginning of greatness. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine being a young child, struggling in school, misunderstood by teachers, and constantly told you'll never amount to much. For most children, that would crush their spirit. But for Albert Einstein, two powerful passions became his escape and his secret strength: mathematics and music. From the very beginning, numbers fascinated him. While others saw math as just boring equations, Albert saw it as a mystery, a puzzle waiting to be solved. To him, mathematics wasn't just another subject. It was the language of the universe. Imagine thinking of every problem like a treasure map, where each clue brings you closer to the truth. That's how young Albert saw math, and he wasn't alone in this journey. His uncle Jacob noticed his spark and fed it, teaching him math in a playful way. He once told Albert, "Math is like a treasure hunt. Every problem is a clue." Those words ignited a fire in his mind, but it wasn't only numbers that shaped him. At home, his mother Pauline believed deeply in the power of music. She placed a violin in his hands and encouraged him to play. At first, Albert resisted. Practicing scales felt tedious, mechanical, but slowly the music opened a new world to him. The violin became more than just an instrument. It became his refuge, a way to think clearly and relax. Whenever his mind was tangled with questions, the sound of music untied the knots. Let's pause here for some English practice. The phrase is food for the soul. It means something that deeply nourishes you emotionally or spiritually. For Albert, math and music were food for his soul. Repeat it with me: food for the soul. What is food for your soul? Maybe it's art, sports, or spending time with loved ones. Albert Einstein's love for mathematics and music shows us something extraordinary. Even in times of doubt and rejection, passion can guide you forward. These two passions, numbers and melodies, gave him balance. Math sharpened his mind and music soothed his heart. Together, they helped him grow into the thinker the world would one day call a genius. So here's the lesson. Don't ignore what lights you up inside. Whether it's solving equations, painting, or strumming a guitar, your passions are not hobbies. They are bridges to your true potential. And as we continue Einstein's story, you'll see how his endless curiosity soon led him to ask one of the most mind-bending questions in history. What would it be like to ride a beam of light? But before we get there, make sure you subscribe and hit that like button so you don't miss the next chapter of this inspiring journey. Because just like Albert, your passions might one day change the world. Imagine being a young teenager, walking home from school when suddenly a question strikes your mind so strongly, that it never leaves you. What would it be like to ride on a beam of light? That was Albert Einstein. While other kids played games in the streets, Albert's playground was his imagination. He wasn't just curious about the world, he was daring enough to ask questions no one else even thought to ask. Albert preferred books over toys, ideas over games. He spent hours lost in stories of great scientists, adventurers of the mind who reshaped human understanding. These stories weren't just entertainment, they were fuel, sparking his own dreams of discovery. To him, the universe wasn't something to accept at face value. It was a puzzle waiting to be solved. And then came that question, riding a beam of light. Imagine clinging to light itself, racing across the universe. What would you see? Would time slow down? Would space stretch? At the time, these were impossible questions. Yet they became the seeds of theories that would later transform science forever. Here's an English phrase for you: thinking outside the box. It means approaching problems in creative, unconventional ways. Albert Einstein lived this phrase. While others memorized facts, he broke free from the box and dared to imagine the unimaginable. Repeat it with me: thinking outside the box. But here's what makes this so powerful. Albert wasn't a genius simply because he had the answers. He was a genius because he had the courage to ask bold questions. His imagination, paired with persistence, became the engine that drove his entire life's work. This part of his story teaches us something important. Your imagination is not childish, it's your superpower. The questions you dare to ask today might become the breakthroughs of tomorrow. So as you reflect, ask yourself, are you only memorizing what the world gives you, or are you brave enough to wonder about what doesn't yet exist? And if you're ready to keep unlocking your imagination with Einstein's incredible journey, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button. The next chapter reveals how hardship and failure pushed him even closer to greatness. Lessons you won't want to miss. Picture this. You're just 15 years old when your entire world is turned upside down. Albert Einstein's father's business collapsed, forcing the family to pack up and move to Italy. But Albert stayed behind in Germany to finish school. The problem? School was not a place where Albert thrived. The strict rules, the harsh discipline, the endless memorization, all of it crushed his spirit. Alone and unhappy, he felt trapped in a system that punished curiosity instead of rewarding it. Eventually, Albert reached his breaking point. He walked away from formal schooling without finishing. To most people, that looked like failure, a teenager dropping out with no diploma and no clear path. Many whispered that he had ruined his future. But Albert saw things differently. For him, education was never about rigid classrooms or repeating facts like a machine. It was about discovering truth. So instead of giving up, he created his own path. He devoured books on science, mathematics, and philosophy. Imagine him sitting late at night, pages spread around him, chasing ideas that stretched far beyond what his teachers had ever offered. He wasn't just reading, he was teaching himself how to think, how to question, how to connect ideas. This independent learning became the foundation of the revolutionary theories he would later gift the world. Let's pause for an English phrase. Against the odds. It means succeeding despite great difficulties. Albert Einstein's choice to leave school and keep learning on his own was truly against the odds. Say it with me, against the odds. His story here teaches us a powerful truth. Failure is not the end. Sometimes walking away from the wrong path is the first step toward the right one. Albert's refusal to conform, his courage to choose his own way, planted the seeds of the discoveries that would one day change the world. So if you've ever felt trapped, misunderstood, or judged for not fitting into the system, remember Einstein. Success isn't about following the rules everyone else sets for you. It's about staying true to your passion and never stopping your search for knowledge. And if you're ready to see how young Albert turned rejection into resilience, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. The next part of his journey will show how he faced failure in exams, but refused to let it define his future. At just 16 years old, Albert Einstein took his first daring step into the world of science. He sat down and wrote his very first scientific paper. It wasn't perfect. In fact, many would have called it rough, unpolished, even naive. But here's the thing. It showed something far more important than perfection. It revealed his courage to try, to put his ideas into words, and to begin building the foundation of what would become a legendary career. Soon after, Albert set his sights on a dream: to study at the Swiss Federal Polytechnic School, one of the most prestigious institutions in Europe. But when he took the entrance exam, he failed. Not because he lacked intelligence, but because he struggled with subjects outside his passion: French, history, and languages. Imagine the sting of that moment. He had left school, taught himself, and worked so hard, only to stumble at the gate of opportunity. Most people would have given up, convinced that failure was proof they weren't good enough. But Albert didn't see it that way. Instead, he looked at his weaknesses straight in the eye and decided to grow. He worked tirelessly to improve, tackling the subjects that once held him back. His determination was relentless, and when he tried again, he passed. This moment wasn't just about getting into a school. It was about proving to himself that failure was not final. Here's an English phrase for you: fall down 7 times, stand up 8. It means no matter how many times life knocks you down, you rise again. That's exactly what Albert Einstein embodied. Repeat it with me: fall down 7 times, stand up 8. This part of his story reminds us that failure is never the enemy. Quitting is. Every setback can either break you or build you, and Albert chose to let it build him. His persistence became his greatest strength, and it's the very reason the world would one day know his name. So the next time you face rejection, remember this: it's not the end of the story. It might just be the beginning of something greater. And if you're inspired by Albert's resilience, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. In the next part of his journey, we'll see how even after entering the Polytechnic, his rebellious spirit continued to clash with traditional education, and how that shaped the genius he became. At 17, Albert Einstein finally walked through the doors of the Swiss Federal Polytechnic School in Zurich. It was a dream come true, but not quite the smooth path he had imagined. Albert was brilliant, yes, but he was also stubbornly independent. While other students dutifully copied notes and memorized lectures, Albert skipped classes, explored textbooks on his own, and chased after the questions that truly fascinated him. His professors didn't appreciate this rebellious spirit. One even told him, "You are clever, Einstein, but you lack discipline." But Albert wasn't looking for approval. He was looking for truth. And in the middle of this academic tension, he found something unexpected: love. Among his classmates was a remarkable woman named Mileva Maric, the only female physics student in his class. At a time when women were rarely seen in the world of science, Mileva stood tall with sharp intellect and a fearless curiosity. Albert and Mileva quickly discovered they were kindred spirits. They spent hours together, bent over papers, discussing theories late into the night. Their bond was built not just on affection, but on a shared passion for unlocking the secrets of the universe. Albert once wrote to her, "Together we will conquer the world of science." For him, Mileva wasn't just a partner in life. She was a partner in thought, someone who understood his restless mind when few others could. Of course, their relationship wasn't without challenges. Mileva faced criticism for being a woman in science, and Albert struggled financially, always worried about his uncertain future. Yet, they supported each other, fueled by the belief that their love and their ideas could carry them through. Here's a useful English phrase: 2 heads are better than 1. It means that working together often brings better results than working alone. Albert and Mileva's story is proof of that. Repeat it with me: 2 heads are better than 1. So, even while clashing with professors and living through struggles, Albert found strength in partnership, a reminder that genius doesn't have to be lonely, and love can be just as powerful a force as curiosity. If you're enjoying this journey through Einstein's life, remember to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapter. Up next, we'll explore what happened after graduation, when Einstein faced rejection after rejection, and yet transformed failure into opportunity. In 1900, at just 21 years old, Albert Einstein graduated from the Polytechnic in Zurich with a degree in physics. He was eager, full of ideas, and ready to make his mark on the world. But life after graduation didn't unfold the way he expected. Albert dreamed of becoming a professor or researcher, yet every application he sent was met with silence or rejection. His professors, unimpressed by his rebellious approach to learning, refused to recommend him. Imagine working so hard for years, only to be told you weren't good enough to teach the very subject you loved most. This was a painful season in Albert's life. He was married, starting a family, and desperate to provide, but opportunity seemed to close its doors on him again and again. Friends urged him to give up his dreams of science and focus on earning a steady living, but Albert's passion for discovery was too strong to abandon. Finally, in 1902, a small door opened. Albert was offered a job at the Swiss Patent Office in Bern, not as a scientist, but as a clerk. His task was simple: review applications for inventions and decide if they were original. Hardly the glamorous career he had envisioned. At first, it felt like failure, but here's where Albert's story takes a powerful turn. Instead of letting disappointment consume him, he made the best of his situation. He began to call the patent office his thinking lab. While examining inventions during the day, his mind would wander to bigger mysteries: light, time, space. At night, he would scribble down his own revolutionary ideas, working in silence long after his family had gone to bed. Here's a useful English expression: when one door closes, another opens. It means that failure can often lead to new opportunities, even if they look different from what we expected. Albert's so-called failure turned into the fertile ground where his greatest breakthroughs would grow. So the young man who couldn't get a teaching job, the graduate who was told he lacked discipline, found himself behind a desk in a patent office. Yet from that very desk, he would soon begin to reshape the world of physics forever. If you're inspired by how Albert turned setbacks into opportunities, don't forget to like this video and share it with a friend who needs motivation today. And stay tuned. In the next chapter, we'll discover how Einstein's miracle year transformed him from an unknown clerk into the most celebrated scientist on Earth. The year was 1905. Albert Einstein was just 26 years old, working quietly as a clerk in the Swiss Patent Office. To most of the world, he was an ordinary man with an ordinary job. But behind that desk, in the quiet hours after work, his mind was racing with questions that no one else dared to ask. That year would later be called Einstein's Annus Mirabilis, his miracle year, because in just 12 months, he published 4 papers that completely changed the way humanity understands the universe. Think about that. Not 1, not 2, but 4 breakthroughs from a man no one in academia even wanted to hire. The first was on the photoelectric effect. Albert showed that light wasn't just a wave, as scientists had believed, but could behave like tiny particles called photons. This idea laid the foundation for quantum physics and would one day win him the Nobel Prize. The second explained Brownian motion, the random movement of particles in liquid. With this, he gave the world solid proof that atoms, once considered just a theory, truly existed. And then came the third, his most famous, the special theory of relativity. With boldness and clarity, Albert proposed that time and space are not fixed, they are relative. From this theory came the world's most iconic equation, E=mc2. Energy and matter, he revealed, are 2 forms of the same thing, interchangeable at the deepest level of nature. For the scientific community, it was like an earthquake. This unknown patent clerk had rewritten the laws of physics from his cramped little apartment. The world would never look at light, time, or matter the same way again. Here's a useful English phrase: to change the game. It means to completely transform a situation or field. Einstein didn't just contribute to science, he changed the game of physics forever. What's truly remarkable is that these ideas were born not in grand laboratories, but in the imagination of a young man who refused to give up on his curiosity. His story reminds us that you don't need perfect circumstances to achieve greatness. You need persistence, vision, and the courage to challenge the impossible. If this story of Einstein's miracle year inspires you, hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who loves learning. And don't go anywhere. Next, we'll explore how fame finally caught up with Einstein, turning him from an overlooked clerk into a global icon. After the miracle year of 1905, Albert Einstein's life would never be the same. Practically overnight, the unknown patent clerk in Bern became the center of attention in the scientific world. His groundbreaking papers spread across Europe, sparking conversations, debates, and admiration. At last, doors that had once been slammed shut began to open. Universities offered him positions, and soon he stood at the front of lecture halls as a professor, first in Zurich, then Prague, and later Berlin. But what set Einstein apart wasn't just his genius, it was his attitude toward fame. While the world saw him as a man who had unlocked the secrets of the universe, Albert saw himself as simply curious. He once said, "I am no genius.
I'm simply curious."
I stay with questions longer than others." Imagine that. A man whose name would become synonymous with brilliance, insisting that his strength was not intelligence but persistence. By 1909, his name was known far beyond the scientific community. Newspapers reported on his theories. Crowds gathered to hear him lecture, and for the first time in history, a scientist became something like a celebrity. And yet Albert remained simple and grounded. He wore the same old clothes, cared little for appearances, and preferred spending hours lost in thought rather than basking in attention. Here's a useful English phrase: down to earth. It describes someone who is humble and practical, even when they have every reason to be proud. Albert Einstein was the perfect example of being down to earth. Repeat it with me: down to earth. What made him remarkable wasn't only that he transformed science, but that he reminded us of the power of humility. His story teaches us that greatness doesn't require arrogance. True brilliance shines brightest when paired with simplicity and curiosity. If Einstein's humility inspires you as much as his discoveries, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more inspiring stories. In the next part, we'll dive into how Einstein navigated the chaos of World War I, and how his voice for peace made him not just a scientist, but a moral leader in troubled times. As the world was torn apart by wars and hatred, Albert Einstein's life took dramatic turns that revealed not only his brilliance as a scientist, but also his courage as a human being. In 1914, Albert moved to Berlin to join the prestigious Prussian Academy of Sciences. But just months later, World War I erupted. While many scientists supported the war effort, Einstein refused. He openly spoke out against violence, insisting that peace and understanding were the only true paths forward. This made him unpopular with many, but Albert never cared about following the crowd. His personal life, however, was unraveling. The pressures of fame, money troubles, and differences in their relationship led to his divorce from Mileva Maric in 1919. Though their love story ended, Albert ensured she and their children were financially supported for life. That same year, something extraordinary happened. Scientists confirmed his general theory of relativity, showing that gravity could bend light. Overnight, Einstein became a global icon, his face on newspapers around the world. But fame brought danger. In the 1930s, the rise of the Nazi regime in Germany put Albert, a Jewish scientist, in grave peril. The Nazis burned his books, dismissed his work as Jewish science, and threatened his life. Forced to flee, Einstein left Germany and settled in Princeton, New Jersey, where he became a U.S. citizen in 1940. Though heartbroken by what was happening in his homeland, he held on to hope, famously saying, "In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity." During World War II, Einstein's famous equation, E or mc2, became the foundation for nuclear energy. Although he had no direct role in building the atomic bomb, he was devastated when it was used on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. For the rest of his life, he became a passionate advocate for nuclear disarmament, warning humanity of the dangers of its own inventions. He once remarked, "Mankind invented the atomic bomb, but no mouse would ever construct a mousetrap." Beyond science, Einstein used his voice to champion peace, defend minorities, and support refugees. He stood up against racism in America, spoke for the oppressed, and used his fame not for personal gain, but for the greater good. Here's a useful English phrase: to stand up for what you believe in. It means to defend your values, even when it's hard. Einstein stood up for peace, for justice, and for humanity, even when the world was against him. His later life showed us that true greatness isn't just measured by discoveries in a laboratory. It's measured by the courage to use your influence to make the world kinder, fairer, and safer. If Einstein's courage to stand up for what he believed in moves you, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And stay tuned, because in the final chapter, we'll reflect on Einstein's lasting legacy, how his humility, persistence, and curiosity continue to inspire millions around the world today. On April 18, 1955, Albert Einstein took his final breath at the age of 76. His last words, spoken in German, went unrecorded. because the nurse by his side did not understand the language. Yet, even without knowing them, his life itself had already spoken volumes to the world. Einstein left behind far more than equations or theories. He left a legacy of perseverance, reminding us that failure is not the end but a step toward success. He showed the world that curiosity is the driving force of progress, that asking why can open doors no one else even sees. He lived a life of humility, never chasing wealth or fame, choosing instead a simple life filled with music, thought, and wonder. And of course, his contributions to science reshaped our understanding of the universe. From relativity to quantum theory, his ideas became the foundation of modern physics. But perhaps even greater was his contribution to humanity. He stood for peace, spoke for justice, and used his voice to defend those who had none. One of his most powerful messages still echoes today. Try not to become a person of success, but rather try to become a person of value. Think about that. In a world obsessed with titles, money, and recognition, Einstein challenged us to measure our worth by the good we bring to others. Here's a useful English phrase: to leave a mark. It means to create a lasting impact. Albert Einstein left a mark not just on science, but on the heart of humanity. Repeat it with me: leave a mark. So as we close this journey through his life, remember, greatness isn't about being perfect. It's about being passionate, persistent, and unafraid to challenge the impossible. If Einstein, a boy with a late start called a failure by his teachers, rejected by universities, and could change the world, then so can you. If Einstein's story has inspired you, make sure to subscribe, like, and share this video with someone who needs a reminder to stay curious and keep going. And don't stop here. Check out the next video for more incredible stories that will inspire your journey and help you grow.